Israel, and welcome to an edition of World History According to the Bible. My name is Shamar. To my left,
Ikwatazaa.
Tom, my brother. And we are going to be going over Gideon and the 300, getting that history about this battle that took place and his brother Gideon that was essential in being one of the liberators of Israel. So we're going to start at Judges chapter 6, start at verse 1.
The book of Judges, chapter 6, verse 1. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord.
So this happened a lot. The children of Israel kept doing evil in the sight of the Lord. It seems like every chapter of Judges, it either ends with that or starts with that. Children of Israel just were in a cycle, like a vicious cycle of just doing wickedness, being freed, doing wickedness, being freed. And we were just caught in that loop. Go ahead.
And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds.
So it was so bad, our people was having to hide out just to try to avoid some of the tribulation that had befallen them. Go ahead.
And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them. And they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass.
So the children, all these people had come against the children of Israel, and they were pretty much everything that we had, they were just destroying, just passing through, just tearing everything up. They, destroyed the crops, took or destroyed the animals, just left us with nothing. Go ahead.
For they came up with their cattle in their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude, for both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it.
They were just tearing everything up. The animals was eating the crops. Their animals were grazing in our fields. They were destroying the food. It was just nothing that you could really do. Everything was scarce because not that we weren't planting or that we didn't have the resources, but because those resources were being destroyed by our enemies. It's the same thing that happened in 70 AD. Go ahead.
And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you forth out of the house of bondage.
Read on.
And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and drave them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said unto you, I am the Lord your God. Fear not the God of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell, but ye have not obeyed my voice.
So the Most High, the children of Israel cried unto the Most High, and the Most High's response was, he was like, look, when has that ever been an issue for me? When have y'all ever come unto me, or when have I ever let y'all down? I brought y'all out of the land of Egypt. When y'all cried unto me when you guys were in Egypt, I did for you. I brought you forth. I performed miracles. He said, and when you got into this land, I told you not to fear their gods. Meaning, not to say that they were just, not only were they afraid, but they're revering these gods. They were worshiping these gods. We're going to even read later in the scriptures where our people were so dedicated to the gods of the Amorites. And Most High said, look, I told you not to fear or revere these gods. And yet, where are you? You're praying unto these other gods, and that's why you in the predicament you're in. You did wickedly. Go ahead.
Verse 11, and there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak, which was in Ophrah, and pertained unto Joash the Abi-Ezrite, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites.
So this is not only the introduction to Gideon, but look at the story. Look at where the story starts. He was said thresh wheat by the winepress. So whatever he was doing as far as their resources, their crops, their wheat, they had to hide all that stuff when they were trying to process it, because it was the Midianites were coming against them so harshly. I guess someone at the door if you can, Malachi. So the Midianites were coming against them so harshly, they pretty much was like, man, they had to hide getting food or having crops, have a little stash somewhere so it doesn't get eaten or destroyed. Go ahead.
And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, the Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor.
So an angel came unto him and was like, look, we with you. Go ahead.
And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, why then is all this befallen us?
So Gideon asked the angel, he was like, look, if the Most High is with us, then why are our people going through what we're going through? Shalom. He was like, why are our people going through what we're going through? What's going on? If the Most High is with us, then why is life like this? This is the same question we ask, right? Go ahead.
And where be all his miracles, which our fathers told us of, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord had forsaken us and delivered us into the hand of the Midianites.
And he was like, man, what happened to all the miracles? Because he was coming from, his forefathers were telling him about the story of the time that we walked out of Egypt. We talk about that story to this day. But they're hearing it from firsthand, witnesses or the grandchildren. Like, they're hearing it from people who witnessed it or people that weren't far from it, generationally speaking. And he was like, man, what happened to all the miracles? Go ahead.
And the Lord looked upon him and said, go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent thee? And he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house.
So the angel told him, he was like, yeah, the Most High is going to use you to save Israel. And he was like, man, me? He said, not only are we poor amongst our tribe, but he's like, I'm the least in my father's house. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto him, surely I will be with thee, and thou shalt smite the Midianites as one man.
He said, don't worry about it. I got it. Because remember, the Most High put throughout the scriptures things here and there, precept upon precept, that he says, look, it's nothing for me to use who I will. I'll have mercy upon whom I'll have mercy. It's nothing to make a poor man rich on the sudden. It's better to be simple, but keep the commandments as opposed to having wisdom and, being wicked. It's better for you to be a lowly state. The Most High said it over and over and over again. So when he asked, he was like, look, don't worry about it. This is my thing. The Most High is like, this is what I deal with. Even he said, I chose the children of Israel, not because they were mighty in number. So I never dealt with the top dogs or anything like that. He said, I always built up. Go ahead.
And he said unto him, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then show me a sign that thou talkest with me. Depart not hence, I pray thee, until I come unto thee and bring forth my present and set it before thee. And he said, I will tarry until thou come again.
Okay.
And Gideon went in and made ready a kid and unleavened cakes of an ephah of flour. The flesh he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot and brought it out unto him under the oak and presented it.
So pretty much Gideon was talking to this man. He was like, look, well, just wait here until I come back with a gift. So he went and prepared a sacrifice, and he brought it unto the angel. Go ahead.
And the angel of God said unto him, take the flesh and the unleavened cakes and lay them upon this rock and pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put forth the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes, and there rose up fire out of the rock and consumed the flesh and the unleavened cakes.
So he came back with the gift. He instructed him how to lay it down, and he touched it. And fire rose up out of the rock and just ate it up. Like, man, like that's a powerful thing. He was like, look, show me something. Show me that you really, in that spirit that you claim to be coming in. He was like, look, I got you. All right, I've seen enough. Go ahead.
Then the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. And when Gideon perceived that he was an angel of the Lord, Gideon said, Alas, O Lord God, for because I have seen an angel of the Lord face to face.
So Gideon was like, man, I've seen an angel face to face. Look what this man was capable of doing. He's like, man, the Most High is really talking to me. That's really one of the Most High's messengers. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto him, peace be unto thee. Fear not, thou shalt not die. Then Gideon built an altar there unto the Lord and called it Jehovah Shalom. Unto this day it is yet in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, take thy father's young bullock even the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father had, and cut down the grove that is by it.
So that's one of the things that really stands out to me. Gideon, being his father's son, being a young man, his father was wicked. Because what did the angel just tell him? He said, take the bulls that's over there by thy father's grove to Baal, and then destroy. So his father, maybe he had taught him certain aspects of the law, but he wasn't honoring the law. He wasn't a righteous man. He wasn't wholeheartedly keeping the commandments or fully keeping the commandments. And yet Gideon had that faith within himself to be like, man, I'm not following after what I've been shown, shalom, what I've been shown and what I've been taught. I'm going to follow after the Most High. And that's why the Most High was like, that's the man, thou mighty man of valor. He said, that's the guy right there, because it's about, he might not be the biggest or the strongest or the baddest dude, but he got faith. That man is a righteous man. That's who I want. Read on.
And build an altar unto the Lord thy God upon the top of this rock in the ordered place, and take the second bullock and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou shalt cut down.
Uh-huh.
Then Gideon took men of his servants and did as the Lord had said unto him. And so it was, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city, that he could not do it by day, that he did it by night.
So he still had wisdom. He was like, I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to wait till it's dark. Yeah, they're going to come after me. They're going to get me. He said, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to honor the Most High. But, if I can, I'm going to try to be wise about it. Go ahead.
And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it, and the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built.
Uh-huh.
And they said one to another, who had done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, had done this thing.
A lot of things to pull out from the few verses. For 1 in 26, the Most High said, make a sacrifice of the wood that you cut down for the grove. Because remember, this grove was dedicated to Baal. So the Most High was like, not only do you destroy it, but with that wood, burn an offering to me. That wood means nothing. That's, basically, it's like that was a flex. And he said, all the men that they started to inquire, and they were like, man, what happened? They was pretty known, like, man, Gideon the only one that don't worship Baal. But look how strongly our people were into serving other gods. He had to do it by night so that he wouldn't be, killed or captured or whatever the case may be. And then once they rose up, they already knew who was the oddball out. He the only one that's not worshiping Satan. He's the only one that hasn't turned into this other God. He's the only one that still speaks about Yahweh. It had to be him. Nobody else would destroy this grove. Our people were strong into these other gods. And yet when we got into trouble, though, who did we call upon? Still praying unto the Most High. But that's not who we were serving. Go ahead.
Then the men of the city said unto Joash, bring out thy son, that he may die.
They was trying to kill him. Like, it had to be him. He the only one that is not worshiping Baal. Mm-hmm. Bring him out so we can kill him. Dedicated, but all unto the wrong God. Go ahead.
Because he had cast down the altar of Baal, and because he had cut down the grove that was by it.
Uh-huh.
And Joash said unto all that stood against him, will ye plead for Baal? Will ye save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death while it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself, because one had cast down his altar.
So he was basically saying, like, if this is Baal is supposed to be this god and he's so powerful, why is it that all you guys have come up to avenge him? Why not let Baal speak for himself? Let him avenge himself. Like, y'all don't need to put my son to death. Let Baal do it. Let him speak on his own behalf. Go ahead.
Therefore, on that day, he called him Jerubbaal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he had thrown down his altar.
Uh-huh.
Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the children of the east were gathered together and went over and pitched in the valley of Jezreel. Mm-hmm. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also was gathered after him. And he sent messengers unto Asher and unto Zebulun and unto Naphtali, and they came up to meet them.
So he basically reached out to some of the other tribes because he was like, man, all of our enemies are gathered against us in this valley. Jake's pull up. Go ahead.
And Gideon said unto God, if thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said, behold, I will put a fleece of wool in the floor, and if the dew be on the fleece only, and it be dried upon all the earth beside, then shall I know that thou wilt save Israel by my hand, as thou hast said.
So Gideon was like, look, I seen the angel, all praises. He said, Most High. He's looking out at all of these people. And, the scriptures say we're fools for Christ's sake, but you want to make sure that if you're going to be a fool, that it's for Christ. How many of us have been fools because of our pride, because of, our urges, our desires, this inward innate thing that we feel like we're so mighty, or our haughtiness? Gideon was like, look, I'm willing to be a fool. I'm willing to go out there. I'm willing to lay down my life if that's what it calls for. But the angel already told him, thou shalt not die. So he said, look, I just want to be sure, Lord. I'm going to put this on the floor. If only this is wet and everything else is dry, then I know it's you. Go ahead.
And it was so, for he rose up early on the morrow and thrust the fleece together and wringed the dew out of the fleece, a bowl full of water.
So he got up in the morning, and sure enough, the actual floor was dry, but this little patch of, I guess you could call it carpet, was just soaking wet. So he was able to squeeze a whole bowl of water out of it, but nowhere else had any kind of moisture on it. He was like, all right, I see. Go ahead.
And Gideon said unto God, let not thy anger be hot against me, and I will speak but this once. Let me prove, I pray thee, but this once with the fleece. Let it now be dry only upon the fleece, and upon all the ground let it there be dew.
So he said one more time, he's like, Most High, don't be mad at me. I got to be sure. Because the scriptures do say prove a friend. So how much more a spirit or a voice that you can't even see? How much more should you be proving this? So Gideon had that, he was wise. He was like, look, Most High, please don't be angry at me. I just want to be sure. Do the opposite this time. Let this time the fleece, the wool that should obviously have the most moisture on it, he said, this time let it be dry and everything else get that dew. Go ahead.
And God did so that night, for it was dry upon the fleece only, and there was dew on all the ground.
And the Most High did it for him. The Most High showed him, like, look, I'm here, I'm with you, I'm listening to you. I got you, I chose you. What I sent that angel to tell you, this is really what's happening. Go ahead.
Judges chapter 7, verse 1, then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley.
Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hand has saved me.
So the Most High spoke to Gideon. He said, look, it's a lot of y'all. Israel is already haughty. Israel already has that mentality where it's like, I did this. I'm incredible. I'm this. I'm that. So he said, look, if y'all go up to, a war against the Midianites right now, you guys are going to think that you did it as opposed to it's a victory that I gave to you. Go ahead.
Now, therefore, go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from the Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 22,000, and there remained 10,000.
So he said, look, this is how you're going to thin the herd. First thing, anybody who's scared, you can go home. 22,000 people walked away out of 32,000. That's 2/3. Oh, look at that. 2/3. Yeah. About 2/3 of the army walked off and was like, nah, I'm scared. I don't want to do it. Most High gave us the option. I'm going home. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for thee there. And it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee. The same shall go with thee, and of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee. The same shall not go.
So the Most High was basically saying, I'm going to choose these men. Go ahead.
So he brought down the people into the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, every one that lappeth of the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, every one that bowed down upon his knees to drink. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water.
So the Most High told Gideon, he said, look, everybody's about to get water. I want you to pay attention. For the men that pretty much lean all the way into the water, they put their face by the water, say, yeah, I don't want them. And of course, it begs the question. Now, I only speak as a man. I'm putting that out there first and foremost. I'm only speaking as a man. I'm not speaking for the Most High. Scriptures even tell you, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. With that being said, a brother actually recently just told me that one of the things, it was Malachi, he has military experience, and he said, me being a soldier, the one thing that I look at is there's something called putting down your pack. And when you put down your pack in the military, that's like basically you're not interested in the mission. You're getting complacent, and complacency kills. If you were on a mission and you get hot or you get tired, you get uncomfortable, and you just lay out and throw everything to the side, you're not focused anymore on survival or the mission or whatever the case may be. You're focused on comfort. You're putting down your pack. You're letting your guard down. Same thing applies in this situation. These men literally are on their knees with their faces to the water. Your behind is literally in the air. How vigilant are you going to be, or how quickly can you react? How much of a man of war are you with your behind in the air? That, like I said, only speaking as a man, but that made a lot of sense when I heard that. Like, yeah, that's very obvious. There's no way in the world someone whose face is right above the water is going to be as vigilant as someone who scoops and is still able to look around. I'm paying attention to everything. Read on.
Verse 7, and the Lord said it to Gideon, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand. And let all the other people go every man unto his place.
So out of all the men that actually scooped the water and got it from their hand to maintain that vigilance or whatever purpose that the Most High had, it was only 300 of them. He said, by these 300, these are going to be the men that I deliver the Midianites into your hand by. Go ahead.
So the people took victuals in their hand and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man into his tent, and retained those 300 men, and the host of Midian was beneath him in the valley. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, arise, get thee down unto the host, for I have delivered it into thine hand. But if thou fear to go down, go thou with Phurah, thy servant, down to the host. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterwards shall thine hands be strengthened to go down unto the host. Then went he down with Phurah his servant unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host.
So Gideon was told, the Most High was like, it's time. And if you're afraid or you still have those doubts, he said, go with your servant and listen to the words that he's going to tell you. Go ahead.
And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along in the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number as the sand as the sand by the seaside for multitude.
So there were so many of them. He was like, they were just innumerable. They just walked out into a valley, just like he said, like grasshoppers. Think about if you were to look at a huge, just even an acre of field. Just an acre of field. Think about how many bugs and grasshoppers could hide in an acre. And he was like, they were just everywhere you look. All that you could see were these enemy soldiers, their camels, their war animals. That's all you saw in that whole valley. Go ahead.
And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow and said, behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian and came unto a tent and smote it that it fell and overturned it that the tent lay alone. And his fellow answered and said, this is nothing else save the word of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel, for into his hand had God delivered Midian and all the hosts.
So he said, this is metaphorical. This represents the sword of Gideon. Said this is the Most High showing us that the Midianites shall be delivered into Gideon's hand. Go ahead.
And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel and said, Arise, for the Lord had delivered into your hand the host of Midian.
So just like the Most High told him, he heard that word of his servant and he was like, man, even after putting you to the test and having that given unto me, the Most High still had one more thing, because he had to have that man dream that dream the night before. The Most High knew his heart. The Most High knew what he needed to hear, or what would inspire him to give him that extra kick to go out there. Already had it in motion. By the time Gideon left, it was already in motion for him to hear those words. Go ahead.
And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and he put a trumpet in every man's hand with empty pitchers and the lamps within the pitchers. And he said unto them, Look on me and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be that as I do, so shall ye do. When I blow with the trumpet, and I and all that are with me, then blow ye the trumpets also on every side of all the camp, and say, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon.
So he gave every man a trumpet and a pitcher, and he said, basically, do as I do. Go ahead.
So Gideon and the 100 men that were with him came into the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and they had but newly set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hand. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon.
Go ahead.
And they stood every man in his place round about the camp, and all the hosts ran and cried and fled.
So all these men, mind you, only 300 of them, they had trumpets and they had pitchers. So they came, made a whole bunch of noise. They sitting there with the lamps. Mind you, they were doing this. He said, I believe it was still nightfall. So all they see is all these lamps. They hear all that noise. Everybody got up, started taking off. All their armies were running in different directions, just trying to get away. Go ahead.
And the 300 blew the trumpets, and the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Beth-shittah and Zererath, and to the border of Abel-Meholah unto Tabbath. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and out of all Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites.
So in all the chaos, all they saw was lamps. They see all these men that are standing there. They don't know how many more are going to be there, but they heard all that noise and saw all that light. They started fighting each other. It was just so much chaos. And that there's so much that you could take away from the stories in the scriptures, because oftentimes, the scriptures talk about those things which are, the members of the body that we consider feeble are actually more important. And, growing up, I felt like everyone thought the military was just all grunts. It's all infantry. Everybody's just one of those rough and tough-jawed, giant machine gun carrying dudes, and that's all the military needs. But you also need communication. Something so simple that most people probably overlook, or most people don't even consider to be an honorable mission or an honorable role in the military or in a body. And look how essential it became. Everybody wants to be a teacher. Everybody wants to be a top dog. Everybody wants to be that guy that's seen by the people. And yet, look what happens when those feeble members aren't there. All those men, members of the same army, united in the same cause, but they started killing each other in the chaos. Look how pertinent those seemingly minuscule roles become. Then it said, verse 23, then the brethren that Gideon had called, they rose up because they knew what time it was. Like, oh, yeah, they scattered out there. They going crazy. It's time to go clean up. Go ahead.
And Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites and take before them the waters unto Beth-barah and Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together and took the waters unto Beth-barah and Jordan. And they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock Oreb. And Zeeb they slew at the winepress of Zeeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side Jordan.
They killed their enemies and they cut their heads off. And they was like, look, we brought him the trophies of their heads. Go ahead.
And the men of Ephraim said unto him, why hast thou served us thus, that thou callest us not when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply. And he said unto them, what have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God had delivered into your hands the prince of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison of you? Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that.
So they came out and they was mad. It's just like, man, how you go into battle? You know, pretty much they were left out of the loop and they weren't taking part in the battle to the extent that they wanted to. And Gideon was like, yeah, call y'all for what? Y'all killed the princes of the Midianites. He said, what did we do in comparison to what you did? That whole army, yeah, they were out there, they were discomfited, but with leaders, they could have come back together. He said, you cut the head off of the leaders. He said, why would I call you? You was already doing big things. You had stuff popping. They was like, all right, you know, that kind of makes sense. And he had those wise words. A smooth answer turneth away wrath. It was like, all right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with him, faint, yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Succoth, give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me. For they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian.
So they were still in pursuit of their enemies, specifically the kings, but they were, they had traveled so long that they were exhausted and looking for food. Go ahead.
And the princes of Succoth said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hands, that we should give bread unto thine army? And Gideon said, therefore, when the Lord had delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars.
So Gideon asked them for food, and he was like, look, I get that you after him, but you ain't got him yet. He's like, I can't pick a side until I know that's a winning side, pretty much. He's like, I don't want to invest in giving you guys bread. You fail your mission, and the kings come back through this way saying that we're an ally of yours, and you're not able to protect us. Gideon was like, all right, bet. When I come back, you getting that same treatment. Go ahead.
And he went up thence to Penuel and spake unto them likewise. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he spake also unto the men of Penuel, saying, when I come again in peace, I will break down this tower.
So he already told him. He said, when I come back through, it's going to be a problem. Keep that same energy. Go ahead.
Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and their hosts with them about 15,000 men, all that were left of all the hosts of the children of the east. For there fell 120,000 men that drew sword.
120,000. This is the real battle of 300. And the crazy part about it is, you see the movie 300 about the Spartans and their conquest. Their battle was actually called the Battle of Thermopylae. And it wasn't just 300 Spartans. They had actually clicked up with a lot of different other city-states in Greece to be able to fight. So it wasn't just those few. And also people, historians have speculated about the size of the armies because everybody's a hero in their own story. The Spartans said it was, 300 men against 1,000,000. And then the Persians, it's only 10,000 of us or 1,000. Try to make the battle more proportionate. But this is the real story of 300. 120,000 men all got killed. All by the tactics and the wherewithal, the wisdom of 300 men being led by Gideon. That's your movie right there. Go ahead.
And Gideon went up by the way of them that dwelt in tents on the east of Nobah and Ielbehah, and smote the host, for the host was secure. And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them and took the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host.
So he caught them. And everybody, obviously they were scattered. They're like, man, the leader's already been caught. Go ahead.
And Gideon, the son of Joash, returned from the battle before the sun was up.
All of the day's work. Go ahead.
And caught a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him, and he described unto him the princes of Succoth, and the elders thereof, even 70 men. And he came unto the men of Succoth, and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth.
So he came back. He was like, yeah, remember what I told you? You remember how we had that conversation and you didn't believe I was going to do it? So you didn't give us bread? So yeah, come on with us. I got something to show you. Go ahead.
And he beat down the tower of Penuel and slew the men of the city.
Came back and tore it up. He was like, you should have chose, when you had the opportunity to choose up, you should have chose right. Now, it ain't nothing to talk about. He said, gather these men together. Told you I'm tearing down that tower. Came back through there with a vengeance. Go ahead.
Then said he unto Zebah and Zalmunna, What manner of men were they whom ye slew at Tabar? And they answered, As thou art, so were they. One resembled the children of a king. And he said, They were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord liveth, if ye have saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said unto Jether, his father, Salakia. And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, Up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth.
So, they pretty much killed somebody that was near and dear to him. And he commanded this young man. He was like, man, had you just let them live, he said, I would have let you live. But he was like, all right, man, get in there and kill him. But the young man, he was too afraid because he was a very young man. It was probably his first time ever killing somebody, and he was too afraid. Go ahead.
Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, Rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were on their camel's neck.
So he killed the two kings of the Midianites, and he took the ornaments that was on their camels' necks. Go ahead.
Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, Rule thou over us, both thou and thy son, and thy son's sons also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you.
So Gideon was still in that same spirit. All the things that he went through, he went from hiding to try to make food on the low to being the savior of Israel, so to speak, at that time. Literally directly against the hands of our enemies that had all joined forces and clicked up. Gideon came through, wreaked havoc, tore them up, put so many of these men to death, outsmarted them, outwitted them, killed their kings, took their chains off the camel's neck. And after all of that, he could have easily been puffed up and been prideful, like, man, the Most High has chose me to be king because I was already chose to be deliverer. And he was like, nah, the Most High is still king. The Most High is going to rule over you. It's not going to be me or my son. Go ahead.
And Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that you would give me every man that the earrings of his prey, for they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites.
Go ahead.
And they answered, We will willingly give them. And they spread a garment and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey.
So pretty much Gideon, they were like, we want you to be king. He said, no, I'm not going to be king. The Most High is going to be king. He said, but what you can do for me, all that gold y'all took off the Ishmaelites, he said, just give me the earrings. Just bring me all the earrings that they had. Go ahead.
And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside ornaments and collars and purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that were about their camels' necks.
So they brought him a gang of gold, just like pounds and pounds, hella stuff, and they just gave it to him. Go ahead.
And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah, and all Israel went thither a whoring after it, which thing became a snare unto Gideon and to his house.
So they ended up making an ephod, and after that, all of Israel pretty much saw all that gold just sitting there. Everybody was interested in it, and then it became a burden because it's like, damn, this is not what this was supposed to be about. But now, people are constantly coming because they're whoring after it. They worship less. So imagine a statue or a big thing of gold. Children of Israel was probably acting a fool. Go ahead.
Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more, and the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. Mm-hmm. And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house, and Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives.
Gideon had 40 sons. Could you imagine? 40 sons. For one, and also said he had many wives. Look how great the men of Israel were. Oftentimes, because they had multiple wives, they had a totally different space that they was moving in, totally different things that they were able to perform. And with all that he had, Gideon still had not taken away the honor and glory of the Most High. 40 sons.
Well, he had 70 total, right? Because
3 score and 10. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 3 score and 10.
70.
Yeah, 70.
My bad. That show is 70 sons. Excuse me, Thwada. 70 sons. That's even wilder.
Yeah.
I can't even, especially just, I'd be shocked. When down south families or, the older generation, they'll be like, oh, I had 14 brothers and sisters. I'm like, man, that's insane. That's a crazy amount of kids to, especially with one woman. Gideon had 70. And these are just sons. It didn't say anything of daughters. But it just said he had many wives. Go ahead.
And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. Uh-huh. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites.
So he lived a long, prosperous life. He had many sons. He obviously had financial wealth. He got victories in battle, for Israel, and he was a servant of the Most High. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a whoring after Baalim, and made Baal Berith their god.
As soon as he was dead, mind you, these are the people that were just crying unto him to be king. Oh, be king over us. Trying to give him all this honor and this glory, as if they needed or really desired the type of leadership that Gideon was bringing, because Gideon was a man of the Most High. So when they called upon him and they're asking him to be king, it's safe to say that he would have been a righteous man, a righteous king. All these things would have been prohibited. And yet the same people that were calling for this type of leadership, instantly, as soon as he died, turned away from the thing that they were calling and asking him for. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side.
And then they said that, remember, talking about fear or remembering, it means to revere. Like, they're not revering the Most High. As soon as Gideon was gone, it was like, all right, cool. We're done. That was just the last bit of knowledge, or that was the last, people stopped having that same care or reverence unto the Most High once Gideon was dead. I was like, it's kind of like a patriarch in a family that keeps everything together, and then he passes and the family falls apart. That's how Gideon was in Israel. Go ahead.
Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel.
Then after all of that, Gideon did so much. He was there, mind you. It wasn't like Gideon was, because Moses had a pretty good life. Moses was the son of Pharaoh. He was rich, and he chose to give all that up to be with his people. So oftentimes people kind of rejected him because they was like, hey, he was the chiefest amongst Egypt, or he was one of the chiefest amongst Egypt. It's kind of like they didn't relate to Moses in a sense. Gideon was in the struggle. Gideon was right there with him, struggling, starving, having to make and cook his food in private just so that it doesn't get stolen or trampled, destroyed, all that kind of stuff. And yet, after everything he did, all the work he put in, said they didn't even show his house any favor. They didn't even at least be like, man, you're the son of Gideon. What's going on, Ak? What's going on, Shalom? At least show him some kind of love and show some kind of respect just because of the work that has come out of his household and his bloodline. That wasn't even kind unto him. After they was dead, the children of Israel went back to their wickedness. They didn't even care about the works that he did or what his children or, what they could have brought to the table. They was just done. Went back into their wickedness. Do you have anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, it's crazy because that's the thing. Like, that's the interesting thing about the children of Israel. It's like, we get over things very quickly. This is the same scenario when you look at when Moses, when he went up to the to Mount Mount Sinai to talk with the Most High. Mm-hmm. You see that? The children of Israel, they got over it. They told Aaron. And, they were speaking with Aaron, Moses' brother, and he was like, all right, look, you know what? Give me all your jewelry. I'm going to make a false god out of this. I believe it was the golden calf, and they started worshiping that. You see that? So it's just crazy. Did they not just witness Gideon? He just cast down Baal. Baal is a false Canaanite deity. You see what I'm saying? He cast that down. That's just to show you these false deities, they have no power whatsoever. How is it that if they had power, how is it that they're allowing a man to take them down? You see that? So they just witnessed it, and it didn't make a difference to them. They still went back and started worshiping. You see that? That's just crazy right there.
Con, man. Most High willing, we'll get it right. We'll get it together. Our people will stop turning back unto our wickedness. This should be the last captivity. Once we go home out of this one, it ain't no going back. But Thawada, Israel, for tuning in tonight. Please like and share the video so that we can spread the gospel, that we can put in this work and get closer to ending this captivity. And with that, we're going to say shalom.
Shalom.